There's been an increasing push over the past few years to discourage people from pre-ordering games. When gamers are buying things just based on the ads, the screenshots, and all the other slick stuff that the marketing departments put out, it's a recipe for disappointment. And face it, all the cutesy little pre-order bonuses aren't worth getting burned on a full-price game. But an area where there hasn't been enough pushback, where gamers really do need to do something in their own interest, is to stop pre-ordering DLC in the form of subscription services like Season Passes, Call of Duty Elite, and Battlefield Premium. And let me be very clear, I'm not against the bundle, I'm against buying the bundle as a pre-order for the DLC. If you want to buy Premium for Battlefield 3 or 4 at this point, all the DLC is out, and you can make an informed decision about those. But if you want to buy Premium for Hardline, well, they've only teased it at this point, but once they do put a price tag on it and let people start buying it, you still won't have a very good idea what's in it. I'm sure you won't, because they don't have a very good idea what's in it. They probably have some ideas for maps and guns and such, but it's all subject to change. That last DLC, they're probably going to be 4, is going to take, I don't know, anywhere from 7 to 10 months. The 5th one for Battlefield 4 came out more than a year after the game. Of course, they had to deal with all the issues. Are you one of those people who pre-orders a game as soon as it's announced, just with a title and an unspecified release date? Because that's the state a lot of this DLC is in when they start trying to push those DLC pre-orders with the package deals. And all of those arguments against pre-ordering games apply equally well, if not more so, to DLC. And unlike a full game that you may have pre-ordered, when the DLC comes out, it may not be enough to freshen up the experience for you to want to go back and actually play it, whereas a new game is at least a new game to try. Do you know that you'll still want to play that game, that you'll even be able to play that game in several months when that DLC that you pre-ordered finally comes out? Now, one advantage of these bundles is that they tend to be a little bit cheaper than buying all the individual DLCs separately, but usually not that much. Maybe only $10, which is less than the price of any single individual DLC at full price. But if you wait, those DLCs will often go on sale, usually for half price at some point, and you can pick up a similar amount of savings. And then there's the case where the DLC finally comes out and it's just not something you're interested in. Take, for example, Modern Warfare 3. They do map packs, and later on in the game's life, they started releasing these smaller maps that were intended for 1v1, 2v2, maybe 3v3 play. Well, if you were someone who was looking for maps for Ground War, the 9v9 game mode in Call of Duty, you were out of luck, and those maps just would not be your thing. But you didn't know that that's what they were going to be making when they announced Call of Duty Elite. And when it comes to Elite for Modern Warfare 3, I should also mention that there was some strange issues with how you bought that content. It ended up getting tied to the gamertag you bought it under, and not also the console. I think they've since worked that out, but it's just an example of another one of those weird things that can happen when you've already paid for something and you don't get quite what you were expecting. If you bought the map packs individually, you can play them on any account on your Xbox, but if you'd bought Elite, you had to play under the account that you bought Elite under. Maybe they eventually fixed that, but I know it was a problem for a while. So if you didn't like those issues, too bad. They already had your money. What are you going to do at that point? Or take, for example, Battlefield 3's DLCs Aftermath and Endgame. They didn't end up having new weapons, and some people were under the impression that they would. EA came out and was like, no, you misread that, we'll make some corrections, but no, you misread the marketing material, and there are no new weapons associated with those DLCs. Or new vehicle unlocks for Armored Kill. Now, these aren't huge changes, the maps are the important part of the DLC, but it highlights the point that when you're pre-ordering this DLC, especially the Season Passes, or Premiums, or Elite, or whatever it is, you don't know for sure what you're going to be getting. The second big selling point, especially for YouTubers, is some amount of early access. With Battlefield, it's usually only 2 weeks, but other franchises do other things and it can vary. And so what ends up happening is the marketing push for every single DLC for that game isn't just a push for the DLC, it's also a push for the bundle, because they'll start putting that out when you can access it through the bundle and not when it's available individually. That's when all the YouTubers start posting about it. That's when all the gaming press starts posting about it, because it's publicly available. You just can't buy it unless you buy it and pre-order the rest of the DLC for that game. And it makes it really hard to resist. You see all this information and all these people having fun with the new content, and you think, well, I want to join them. but I have to buy it and all the other DLC too if I want to. Otherwise, I have to do something that is so hard for us, and that's actually just be patient and wait. On the other hand, you can take a certain sweet, smug satisfaction when it turns out that that DLC pack isn't something you wanted, and the fact that you had to wait a little while for all the hype to die down means that you can clearly judge it and know that when you finally do get the option to buy it, well, maybe it's not a good idea. If it's not still active, if people aren't still posting about how much fun they're having when it's finally available to everybody who didn't buy the bundle, well, maybe it's not worth it. Battlefield has a really bad habit of adding these game modes with their DLCs, and then a month later, hardly anyone's playing them, and it's kind of a joke, and it's no longer a reason to buy that because you're going to have a really hard time getting a game. And I know it's not fun telling your friends that, no, you're not going to play with the new DLC because you don't have it, because you didn't pre-order everything was part of the bundle, but it's the developer and the publisher's fault for splitting up the community like that. Map packs are already a problem that way, and early access to DLC only makes it worse. And as if you didn't need another reason not to play during those early access periods, sometimes there will be weapon DLC, and it may be poorly balanced and in fact completely overpowered, so while you're running around trying to do your normal thing, suddenly you're at a disadvantage to the people who actually bought the bundle and pre-ordered the DLC. Not to worry, they'll probably balance the weapon out, but it'll only come shortly around the time when it's actually available to everyone to buy. Okay, that one's not too frequent, but when it does happen, it's really annoying. I take it as a bad sign when a publisher or developer is pushing DLC ahead of a game's release. It makes me think their focus isn't where it should be, in marketing the base game and making sure it's as good as possible, rather than just trying to sell you on a platform so they can sell you some more stuff later down the line. At one point, maybe it was a good sign that the publisher thought that they were going to have a serious game that might have some staying power if they announced that they planned to have DLC for it, but at this point, every game seems to have DLC, and in fact, it's more noteworthy when a game doesn't have any. It's the whole "they're going to support the game" argument. A publisher turning off the multiplayer servers for a game only a year or two after release is going to lead to a lot of bad press, and it would probably cost them less in game sales and reputation if they just pay a little bit to keep a few servers active so they could say something was at least up, rather than turning them off. But at any rate, if you pre-order all the DLC as part of a package, they don't have to worry about that. They already have your money. Are those DLC packs going to be enough to keep that studio afloat and everyone there together working on it, or is the team that made the game going to kind of go their separate ways as the game begins to wind down and they're left just making a little bit more content? For example, the later Battlefield 4 DLCs, Dragon's Teeth and Final Stand weren't developed by DICE Stockholm. Instead, they were developed by DICE LA, who had a lot of staff who came over from Danger Close Studio, who developed Medal of Honor Warfighter, which was closed down after that game. And while that particular situation worked out reasonably well, take it as another example of how you don't know what you're getting when you pre-order these things months, or in some cases, more than a year ahead of time. Now, EA was going to do something, obviously. They didn't want to try and probate some refunds on DLC that had already sold. I mean, you've already sold the DLC, EA. It's not too hard. You just have to deliver something, and we'll probably call it good. Nobody will be able to really do anything. And then there are all the other little things that are exclusives, things you're not going to get any other way, partly because they're not going to bother making microtransactions out of all of them. Well, weapon skins that might come with it, player cards, an extra knife model for Battlefield, maybe some extra unlocks, some fast forward and progression, a few extra XP events, essentially a whole bunch of stuff that really doesn't have any specific monetary value, just some extra stuff they could sell you on and put in the marketing and sell you on as part of that package. I think one of the funniest ones was the stats reset with Premium in Battlefield 3. It didn't reset your stats. It wasn't like Prestiging in Call of Duty where you had to unlock your guns. No, it was just for your page in Battlelog that kept track of your KD, win-loss, score per minute, and accuracy. It didn't reset your global stats even. It just resets the ones that are right there at the top of the page on your profile. Are you worried about your EPing in Battlefield 3? Then buy Premium, reset your stats, and put on your try-hard panties. The thing with this package deal is the same with any package deal. The company expects to make more money, by selling you all of this at one slightly lower price than based on making you buy everything individually. For some people, these deals will make sense, but on the whole, the company expects to make more sales by giving you the option to buy them slightly cheaper as a pre-order bundle. The same applies from any discount you see from a merchant. They're not doing it because they want to be nice to you. They expect that in the long run, this is going to make them more money, either because you're going to come back to them or just through straight up volume of sales. So far, I have not pre-ordered any DLC, and it's a decision that I can say has only saved me money. Maybe there'll come a game where that isn't the case, but so far I'm pretty far ahead. If there's some DLC that I actually want, well, then I can apply those savings to actually getting something that I do want. I expect some mixed comments on this video, but right now no one can say if Battlefield Hardline Premium is worth it, when much of the content that is to be there is just a twinkle in the developer's eye. How much time players put into that content as it comes out over the months, and they keep playing it over many months, is going to vary, and how much enjoyment they get out of it is going to be very subjective. And it'll be a year or more before you know if it was worth it for you or not. All the high-dollar advertising is pushing in one direction, I felt like I should push back in the other. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.